Okay, how about another video on coronavirus and or my situation, whatever that ends up being. And, so anyway, some people asked for some kind of update of another video. I don't know why. Not many. Don't worry. There isn't a great rush to hear me pontificate on this, and I can understand that. However, from my standpoint, hearing Chris Cuomo talk about what he went through, is going through, that his wife is also tested positive, it is kind of interesting because it's the kind of follow-up intelligent discussion about the situation. Now, he has had a different situation, which is that he went in, got tested, showed positive, had x-rays, all kind of other stuff done, which of course, this is one of the problems with the testing. You show positive, then what do? Right? You spend lots of money on stuff, or you shrug your shoulders and say, yeah, great, I knew it. I'm in the situation where whatever the results don't actually matter much. I can't see myself making any differentiation in decision making based on whether or not I test positive or don't. I am assuming I'm positive and infectious. Have been for quite a while, actually. There was, one week when I went out dancing that I probably shouldn't have, where I was already pretty suspicious that, yeah, I probably have this shit. But, that probably was 50-50. It's moved to about 80-20 since then, and has been that for quite some time. Mainly because of the range of symptoms has pretty much hit all the check marks, all of them. Like they talk about the red eyes thing. Yeah, I haven't had red eyes. I've had very dry eyes that feel like they're close to that. I've had the hacking cough. One thing that I've had that that correlates more with a cold, and is kind of a lot of the initial sites said, oh, you don't have it if you have this, was post-nasal drip. Both my wife and I had that. There's possibilities still. That other 20% is, this is an environmental factor in my house. That, maybe the mold has gotten bad enough that it's actually affecting both of us. Although it's always kind of been here, and we've always kind of been fighting it, right? Maybe this year, for whatever reason, was the tipping point, and now it's bothering us more. But it doesn't seem to react that way. It doesn't seem to be based only on the weather outside, or whether or not I have the windows open or anything like that. It seems to be following more the pattern of a cold that you're passing back and forth, back and forth. Maybe that's all it is. Whatever. She's been through a number of my colds, which often are more severe than what I've been facing this year. Well, they haven't been since I moved to Oregon. When I was in Phoenix, the cold and flu season hit at a particular time that I think intermingled with an environmental factor, which is, the pollen that happens in the desert or whatever. And if I got a cold in Phoenix, it would last me for like 3 or 4 months. And I just couldn't shake it. And it would get down into my lungs. And I'd have a cough all throughout. But it would be a different nature of cough. There wouldn't be the fever continuously with it. You may have seen the first year that I moved back to Oregon, I had a bad coughing spell, which I feel like that was a lingering effect of whatever was in Phoenix. That was almost yearly. Anytime I got sick in Phoenix in the spring or winter, it would just persist. Maybe something happened and I just recovered from that, but that kind of reaction shouldn't have passed to my wife. She never got that in Phoenix. And this is the first time in her life she's ever had a sickness that was like this at all, where she's getting that post-nasal drip, the cough, etc. That's discontinuous. And she doesn't smoke. She doesn't spend enough time around me in terms of like secondhand smoke finally catching up, I don't think. We're too far apart in our lives. She's in the basement. I live in most of the rest of the house. It's just the way we do things. Anyway, there are still some issues here. There's still the moral issue of, should I fight to get tested? It still would be a fight, because I don't think they test people with these minimal conditions that I've been having that barely affect me. I've had to take a day off work since the last video. I think I had to take a day off then. And maybe I had to take a day or two where I took an hour or two off as well. But in general, since I work from home, if I was going out into the workplace with this, especially, given the infectious rate and all that, I would just be like, yeah, I can't come in anymore. It's pretty obvious that I wouldn't be able to. But instead, because I have the privilege or whatever of normally working from home, this whole thing has barely impacted me. I made a joke on BGG about this, which was work from home privilege. I'm just so used to it and so used to being isolated from people and just living my own little life that, yeah, this just seems like normal, except I'm a little sick all the time in a way that I'm not used to. I got to tell you one thing, the fevers, low-grade fevers entirely, headaches, tiredness partway through the day. I think tea is my particular problem there. I think it further dehydrates me. Whenever I'm drinking coffee or water, that seems to have less of an effect. But I don't drink much water. Like I said in Facebook, it's because I can't smoke when I'm drinking water. But when I do videos, I usually have so much trouble keeping my pipe lit while I'm talking that it's kind of pointless anyway, so I've got coffee and water next to me right now. Anyway, in terms of what I could do at this point, yeah, I could probably fight to get tested and not be able to change my life at all, depending on what they found. If they find I'm positive and say, well, you should isolate yourself, well, I'm doing that as much as I can anyway. I have to be able to get food. I am emotionally and psychologically incapable of calling, some food collection type group that'll go out and charge me money to deliver food to me. I'm not able to do that, okay? I'm not able to justify a car or I was never able to justify taking the bus to go shopping or anything like that. I drag my little hand cart up and down my hill in order to grab my 2 weeks worth of groceries or whatever. And, one sign of how healthy I still am is the simple fact that, yes, most days I can fucking pull 150, 200 pounds of groceries up a damn steep hill, for a quarter mile or whatever, in addition to the other 3/4 of a mile that's all upward travel when I'm loaded. So, I'm able to do that. In fact, I haven't pulled the grocery cart a single time where it was taxing. I had a couple times when I wasn't feeling well enough that I thought I could go full shopping when I went to the more local store, which is like 25-minute walk away, with backpacks. And walking that up the hill on at least one day, I was barely able to breathe. I was in a cold sweat. I was in bad shape. And then still I have kind of is it just that I've been so lazy recently without dancing, without, being able to go out and stuff like that. And I think that was the illness showing itself. But, it's not like I'm gasping for breath. That happened recently, a couple of days ago. I had a period where I was talking enough in a meeting where I started noticing a wheeze coming into my breath, as though it was an asthmatic wheeze. That's something I don't get very often, but when I do, it's sometimes pretty severe. And that had me very worried, because that's a rare thing. Usually that is induced by certain foods rather than anything else. Peanut butter being the worst, and I eat peanut butter even though it clogs me up and makes it unable to breathe. There have been nights where it's not so much the nasal drip, but that in conjunction with like a swelling in the sinuses and everything, that makes it almost impossible to breathe. And I can't sleep unless I'm laying on my side, and even then it's not good. Sometimes I'll break down and I'll take some medication. One thing about the bad moments, they're always brought on, and the bad moments last a couple days, right? I have like 1 or 2 bad days in a row, and then it gets better. How much better? I don't know. Like, I'm not feeling great right now. I was feeling pretty good yesterday. This is all in the, I'm not too worried. I certainly wouldn't take the day off thinking, off working or whatever, although I might not want to be playing Mississippi Fortress upstairs right now. Oh, there are things about that game that make me not want to play it. But yeah, I mean, my nose is clogged. But these days are not so bad that they really impact my life. I would go out shopping today. I have a little bit of a headache. I probably have a slight fever. It's hard to tell with me. First of all, I don't have a thermometer. Secondly, my normal temperature used to be 96.8, which means if they ever do institute just temperature checks, I mean, if they hit me at 99 or whatever, and they're looking at over 99 being where they, maybe say you shouldn't come into this restaurant or not, anything, I'm already burning up at a fairly high fever compared to other people. Just as, if you're 98.6 and you're 2 degrees over, you're at 100 and something. With me, I'm still under that 99, right? Now, I don't know if that's still the case. I do know that when I went in with my with my only one real adult illness, which was such a fucked up situation. Part of the reason why, like, I naturally distrust hospitals and doctors and stuff like that, but beyond that, these guys just fucked me. I come in with what feels like a pretty high fever to me. They take my temperature, and one, they don't check to make sure, they don't really test me. First of all, I'm a mouth breather, so that immediately cools anything that's put in, the thermometer that they stick in my mouth. They didn't ask for a rectal, and they didn't have the little electric one. Secondly, they didn't bother with the fact that I just took a swig of water just before I put the thermometer in, or before they put the thermometer in, because I was so dry and so thirsty, I needed it. So that cools my mouth a little bit. Maybe it's supposed to warm up or whatever, but they got a very low-grade fever on me, which for me would be higher. They didn't ask me what my normal temperature is. I was unable to open my mouth, so they weren't able to see the extent of the problem with the swelling inside. And they gave me some penicillin or something, and discharged me out into the street without any kind of, and I'm confused and delirious and everything at this point from the fever, without any, suggestion of, look, do you need a cab? Can we get, nothing like that. This was unfortunately a downtown Phoenix hospital. That's where the cab that I caught, at the hotel that I stumbled into asking for help, because I didn't have a phone or anything. That's where they took me, and this thing discharges me out into the street. There are no buses running. There's nothing going on. I have to walk 2 hours. There's no pharmacy to get my meds from that they sent me to. Then I have to curl up outside a CVS or Walgreens, I think a CVS, for an hour and a half if I want to get my medication. Well, I'm like, no. So then I walk home. So now I'm 2.5 hours in the winter, stumbling around. Now, granted, winter in Phoenix isn't too bad with a fever. And, eventually I was able to get a lift from the concierge where I lived. Um, he was willing to do that for me, to pick up my medication. But then, after I took that stuff, it ended up swelling my head up to like twice the size. I don't know if it was the infection going bad. I never really found out, or if it was a reaction to the medication. And within a couple of days, I was obviously bad then. Before, the only reason I went to the hospital was I had missed enough days of work that I was kind of worried. I was like, wow, I can't keep taking sick days. I'm running out. And so I need a doctor to sign something to say I'm sick if I'm going to keep, just curling up and trying to recover as I normally did from infections. So anyway, my trip to that hospital was just so horrible. And then the follow-up hospital, I was in bed on tubes. They had me out on morphine. They had all kind of crap. They did an operation on me. And I still blame it all on that first hospital. And had I just been able to curl up and heal myself, I was younger then too, in my early 40s, I probably would have been fine. I had been through sicknesses that were this bad before. I've had walking pneumonia. I probably have chronic bronchitis. I have a whole bunch of problems. But I'm used to toughing them out and just living through them. Anyway, so, if faced with the option of, well, gee, you're positive, try to stay isolated from people. Well, I'm trying to do that anyway, but I've got to get food. And again, I'm emotionally incapable of paying someone to get my food when I can get it myself. I can do what I can try to do. I've got a mask now. Nothing exciting. It's just basically a bandana. Although I can't find my actual bandana, so I'm using a dice mat. And it's not particularly folded or anything, but you know what? That's what comes of a world where, we're not able to provide the proper equipment to protect people against possible infections that other people have. I'm not the only one in this situation, and I damn well know that. I know that the homeless people are not able to get appropriate masks. They're not able to get appropriate comfortable location. They have to get their food. They're spitting on the ground, whatever the hell's happening. So, that infection cloud, that's going to be here unless we, as a society, change things completely. Now, here's the other thing. I'm also somewhat worried. What if the state does decide to start trying to do things? Sorry about that, battery died. Knowing the way that America and its capitalism works, what would I guess would happen? Well, there probably would be, you need a clean bill of health type thing to be allowed to go out, go shopping, to be allowed to be reduced, to do things. Or maybe you need, maybe more importantly, more likely, you would be considered somehow negligent if you know that you're infected, i.e. have a diagnosis, and go out. That's the danger in our society. The government isn't going to come in and help you. That's not the way our government works. The way our government works is it holds you responsible, but only if you know what's wrong. Not if, we know how the businesses get away with things too. It's the same kind of situation. Well, I did all the testing I was required to do by law, and even though there were some suspicions that there might be other things that were maybe raised from lower down or whatever, as long as we make sure they don't get to the right people, the corporation as a whole doesn't get held all that responsible. And that's the same feeling I have here, is that there's actually a danger to getting tested. I see the same thing with mental health testing, by the way. There's no positive side effect to getting tested. Essentially, unless there's something that would come in and help me, it's in my best interests not to know these things. Because, yeah, again, I'm just not seeing that the response is ever going to be adequate enough to really protect all the people, and to support those who are trying to do their best to protect other people. So instead, it's probably to my best interests to never get tested. It doesn't really impact me. The only exception is if there's some requirement, if we go to the requirement that you have a clean bill of health of some sort or another to be able to do certain things. There's also the fact that, again, testing currently is difficult to get. It would be a significant challenge to get testing under my condition. I've heard about people who have tried to get the testing, had to spend about $10,000 in tests for other things to be able to prove that they need the test for corona. Well, I'm just not that interested, Again, a society that wants to protect itself will take steps to do so. And I will react to those steps, as is in my best interests, right? If they're not trying to figure out who exactly is contagious and what's going on with them, if they're not able to catch that, then I know that the risk that I pose is no worse than the risk that many other people who are here pose. And indeed, so long as there are asymptomatic people who are not being tested, I don't feel like I'm particularly more dangerous. We don't even know, from what I've heard, you're only contagious in the first part when you catch it. Well, how many times have I caught it? That's a good question. That's one of the facets of all this. Is there any immunity at all building up between my wife and I? Because either we have held, if this is corona, we have held this since mid-January, maybe late January. I'm not sure. I don't remember when, I first started saying, that's sick. First of all, I think the sickness came before any real reports were coming out of China. Yeah, I'm the hipster of illness. I think the sickness came before there were any real reports coming out of China about the seriousness, at least. There might have been some initial reports about, wow, there's something weird going on there where we're seeing too much flu death and there might be something that's unknown. I can remember when they first started talking about the ophthalmologist who eventually died. I had already been sick for a while when they first started talking about him blowing the whistle and then getting kind of pinned down on it and being hospitalized and then eventually dying. Well, when the first reports of that were coming out, I had been sick for a couple weeks already. So, again, maybe this is something completely different, or maybe it's permeated earlier, in which case, the spread rate may be a lot lower than people think. I would definitely suggest that the mortality rate for infected people is way lower than is being reported, because the people who have been able to get testing pretty much anywhere have been people who are showing pretty bad symptoms already. You go in with what I've got, and at least until recently, I'm pretty damn sure from all reports that I've seen, it's hard to get tested. If there was even, sort of a, hey, just walk into this place and you get tested. And I know there are, like Los Angeles, Sean Penn is trying to set something up like that, drive-through testing. Well, I don't drive, so I can't go to that either. I'm stuck in my own little existence. So, anyway, in terms of any kind of moral culpability, I'm willing to pass that off to our society has defined itself. And I just have stopped holding any level of moral worry about what I'm doing right now. I'm assuming that the infection rate, that the exposure rate is pretty damn high already. the infection rate is probably higher than we think by a lot. And the mortality rate is a lot lower than we think. So what else can I say? Yeah. So yeah, in terms of the testing, so this nose swab testing doesn't sound like a pleasant thing to go through either. Would I be willing to if it was set up? I don't know. You know, at this point again, I'm more afraid that the negative effects of getting tested are worse than any potential positive. I'm going to try shotgun things that I can fix, you know. I've been taking vitamin C and vitamin D to try to face it off. Now I find out that they've been using zinc in certain treatment programs. I'm going to try that as well. I'm not going to be, you know, obviously I can't get a hold of these drugs that they're doing, you know, trials on or whatever. But, you know, increasing my zinc intake a little bit, that doesn't sound too harmful for a short period of time. And if that helps me throw it off, that'd be great. It's not going to stop me from getting food that I need. I know that I will be unhealthy if I do not eat. And it's probably both illegal and definitely beyond my capabilities with what equipment I have in the house to get myself one of the deer that's wandering around or a turkey. Turkeys have been kind of not around much. I think they're afraid people might eat them, you know, or whatever. There's just, you know, I need to be able to get food, and I'm not going to be able to call someone to get me food. Probably the way I transport my groceries is a lot safer than most people, which is I'm not, you know, well, most people who would be in my position, sick, without a car, which would be like, oh, let me call a cab or an Uber and get some eats that way. I'm not even sure that, like, you know, there'd be a safe way of transferring stuff if I'm a sick person trying to buy, you know, I mean, if I infect the person who's going to all the people who are really trying to be careful and protect their life, by not going out and getting food, well, that's probably more dangerous than me going to the supermarket during the time when it's not, you know, old and otherwise immunocompromised or whatever people allowed to go to the supermarket. And I try to follow, you know, their strictures. If I see a hand sanitizer, I use it before I go in. I don't worry about it when I'm going out. I am counting on I'm infected already, you know. Yeah, and have been. My wife's a lot more worried about it, and you know, honestly, she's probably right. Not about that we don't have it, but that we're probably kicking it back and forth and not getting any kind of immunity from it over the course of this time. That, you know, I mean, there has to be some kind of immunity when you fight something off. If you truly are fighting it off, and people are showing up as, I assume, not positive for the test, since that's the gatekeeper that's going on when they're saying they're cured, that they actually did test them again. I'm not sure about that. Nothing that I've seen has indicated that you needed a positive test to go into the cured bucket. It might just be you're done with symptoms and they're saying, oh yeah, you're cured. But I'm assuming at least somewhere is testing people. Which is to say then, well, maybe we keep spreading it back and forth afterwards, you know. One of us is always sick. Although even that, I'm not even so sure of. Usually the infectious period goes away. Usually it's early in the sickness, and then at some point you're very sick still, but you're not infectious anymore because you don't actually have the disease. You just have the symptoms of it still from having, you know, your body having fought it so hard, which is always an interesting thing to me. I'm not a doctor, obviously, so I may be just spouting bullshit. And I try to stay away from doctors whenever possible. In terms of the actual symptoms that I've had, like I said, I've had the cough, I've had shortness of breath. It feels like almost a constant shortness of breath during some periods, but I'm not sure if it is. It may just be I'm not breathing very deeply because I can. There's no pain or anything like that in this, and I'm only exhaling as I speak, so we don't have to worry about, my lung capacity seems perfectly fine right now. There have been times when it's been maybe a wee bit less than it should be. But, yeah, I mean, the main reason that there's shortness of breath is maybe because my nasal passages are a little blocked and I'm not drawing as much air in as I'm used to as through my mouth and nose and ears. Elvis breathe through their ears. Yeah, never mind. It's a very inside joke, maybe too inside. In the sense that absolutely no one who watches this will get it. But yeah, I've had the dry eyes, the headaches, what feel like fevers, cold sweats, achiness at times, but that's kind of hard to judge, So like some of it may be just I'm out of shape from being sick for a while, from being inside for so long, the winter, all these things kind of add up. And, so like I went out and did yard work for a couple of days. Stuff that usually strains me, tires me out, and my body ached more than I expected, but I don't know, I certainly have not had anything that made me think at all, that I have not had anything in this illness other than maybe the duration, and even that, given my prior history, I don't think so, that would make me think, gee, I should go to a doctor. I haven't even been missing work, which is usually the drive, is, shit, man, I've missed 2 weeks of work. I had better go to a doctor because otherwise work might start getting worried about me. Anyway, anything else? I don't know. I really don't know. Oh, what helps? Well, like I said, water helps. Tea seems to hurt. I'm addicted to tea. Coffee seems to help, but that may be, again, just cutting down on the tea, getting liquid some other form. But although I have to say the coffee seems to help more than water somehow, which may be like a lower diuretic effect and a higher caffeine, although my tea may be very high in caffeine, but it may be the different type of caffeine. So coffee has a kind of caffeine that affects my stomach differently. I get the shits from coffee. I never do from the caffeine in tea. Or it may just be that I get a lot less caffeine from my tea than I think I do. Smoking is probably a bad idea, but I can't seem to help it. Sleep. Sleep helps a lot. When I get very sick, if I can just sleep for a day, I almost immediately feel better. Again, that's a reason why it's probably not environmental. I'm spending the time in the same room. I'm just spending that time sleeping instead. Anyway. And that's really about it, that really is about all that seems to help, is a change in the liquids. One of the things they bring out is the lack of taste. You start tasting and smelling differently. Well, I can't smell shit because my nose is clogged up. And that, of course, affects your taste. But my sense of taste seems okay other than those factors. It's not like I've got no other symptoms at some point and, gee, I can't taste my food. Although I do get periods where I have absolutely no desire to eat. And then other periods where I'm absolutely craving chocolate. Now that's weird for me. Normally I don't crave chocolate. I like chocolate. I like it a lot. But usually I'm as happy with like meat or cheese or something like that as a snack. But ever since this has happened, my intake of chocolate has gone through the fucking roof. You know, I mean, I'm eating like a couple of chocolate bars a week or something along those lines, and that is just really abnormal for me. That's perfectly normal for my wife, so there's no way of judging. You know, she always craves chocolate. I do not. I like chocolate, but it's as if there's something in the chocolate that, like, my body is just like, yeah, I need this. That particular taste or whatever is just the only taste that really is activating my taste sensors fully, or something along those lines. Because it's not like I don't notice that I have taste. It's more like I don't really care. You know, and again, there have been points where I have absolutely no desire to eat, which is weird when I'm sick. When I'm sick, usually, I want soups. I want to be chewing because that clears my nose. I just kind of don't care right now. It's this malaise as far as food goes. Sometimes I feel weak and dizzy, and I'm like, yeah, I'm probably hungry. I probably should be eating something. I don't think I'm losing any weight from it because my body's slowed down so much in general that, you know, an amount of food that I'm like, well, I can't possibly survive on this seems to be exactly what I need physically. Anyway, let's send this up, and we'll see. We'll see if anybody cares about whatever I have to say, or finds any value to it at all. I don't know if I do.